pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. On tonight's agenda, we're looking at using the landfill recreationally, looking to finalize the Comcast cable franchise agreement. We're gonna have a discussion of the status of some right-to-know requests that we had received. We're looking at our multi-building HVAC request for bid, and some old and new business. And looks like we're finished up with a non-public this evening. And actually, we're gonna start off with a quick non-public. Lieutenant Abel had asked to discuss some employee issues with us. So, I guess make a motion to go into non-public under section 91A3, section 2A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or disciplining of such employee. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Before you start, Mike, just make sure that the I think we probably should make a motion to seal the minutes. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now with the sealing and unsealing of the minutes, is there a specific timeline by which they have to be unsealed, or, cause that's the other end of this that we're not up to speed on.
This is a problem that all towns kind of struggle with there. In theory, when it gets to the point where the purpose for sealing them is no longer relevant, you know, is that 6 months, a year, or a week?
Well, like this
you
one
know,
could be 2 weeks, irrelevant.
It
Yeah.
could,
Yeah.
but towns honestly never go back and kind of do the house, you know, the housekeeping that says, going through the non-public saying, yeah, this could be, you know, it doesn't need to be sealed anymore. And if you look at the, I'd have to go back and look at the record retention, requirements as well as, RSA 91A, just to clarify on when it's no longer necessary to keep them sealed and they're available to the public, just like any other minutes.
Now, with the sealed minutes, are those all kept separate in a box somewhere, like from everything
No.
else, or is it just mixed in with everything?
So the way the minutes have been stored here historically is, chronologically. So you would have to look at each set of minutes to see if there was a motion to seal or not.
Mm-hmm.
If there was never a motion to seal, then in theory, after 72 hours, those would be available to the public.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a motion to seal, then we'd have to look at the individual circumstances. The selectmen can always vote to remove that designation.
So what I'm getting to is like how you said that towns seldom go back and unseal
Right.
minutes. So it's not like we have the envelopes of the sealed minutes in with all of the regular minutes of the meeting. They must be kept
They're
in a
kept-
sealed minute spot, right?
Correct, and a lock cabinet in the selectman's office.
Okay. I wonder if we should start kinda going through those.
How far back
Yeah,
do you
I
wanna
think-
go?
I read up a little bit on it as well and watched that seminar that Jimmy, is it?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like what he's saying is very much the idea with it
Yeah.
is what I gathered is maybe if unsealed minutes,
Yeah,
that it would really be incumbent on the selectmen to look at them and see if they need to be,
okay.
unsealed.
I think,
I don't know if
I
we
think it'd
have-
be a good idea to keep track of our sealed minutes that we're doing.
I agree
currently,
with you, and I
yeah.
think, maybe not going back historically, unless somebody requested something, but to do it from here forward as we remember things that are gonna be, you know, in the annual report
Yeah,
next year. Well, why not unseal it?
yeah,
There's no need to keep stuff like that sealed.
yeah,
Something to
yeah,
keep in mind, that it's a good point, Sean.
yeah.
This meeting is being recorded.
Sean, if I could have one moment.
Yeah, yes.
I'm very sorry to do this to you gentlemen, but unfortunately, my work schedule for the next 9+ weeks, and what could possibly happen once school starts, on top of several other issues, I'm resigning from the select board. So, I've done this for almost 5 years, have enjoyed some of it, have not enjoyed some of it, but as of late, it is getting to the point where, it is affecting me personally, emotionally, physically, and is not something, I feel is worth, affecting my family or anybody else. So, again, I've appreciated it, I have enjoyed being on the board, both you gentlemen as well as the people before. But at this time, the best decision for me is to step down as a selectman, pretty much.
Okay. Sorry to hear that, John. Thank you for your service to the town.
And I would second that. 5 years. 3 months has been very eye-opening, so 5 years is, that's a lot.
Yeah, and 2+ years before that on budget alone, so, and that is one of the biggest things that's bothering me right now, is that, to go into another budget season, fighting, kicking, screaming, to then fight for what we know is right for the town, the employees of the town, the people of the town, and literally have to fight. And then we have a school budget that passes by, I know it wasn't a huge margin, but over 4 times as much as ours was,
Mm-hmm.
with the people. We did our job to try to inform them of a $1.7 million deficit in that budget, and they're gonna face that, and they're not gonna go knock on the SAU's door, they're gonna come knock on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I've already told some residents, wrong door.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so I just, like I said, I can't, I'm not gonna go into this budget season again like that, I can't, physically I can't, I'm not gonna
Okay.
do it to myself, so. Again, I appreciate it, gentlemen, I thank you again for sitting on the board with me, and, I'm an asset if you need it, but, I wish you all the best.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
So did you have, something on the recreational use of the landfill for us, Scott?
I do. is correspondence from DES on the subject,
Thank you.
and behind that is the application. That would have to be completed if you wanted to move forward. And there's some fees depending on how they classify it.
I would have never known.
What's that?
I would have just said go fly your planes at the landfill. It's like
But
unused.
it's not, in my mind, this is very workable.
Yeah, no, it is, but I mean, still, like, just to even have this type of, yeah, like,
When I
have
s-
never,
Yeah, when I spoke with Michael North, he said they're an enforcement agency, basically.
yeah,
And so they're not gonna be up there monitoring. However, if they stop in and see that going on, that's when we would get fined.
yeah, yeah,
That we didn't have this on type one modification, which costs $100. And I spoke with the gentleman again who's brought this forward, and he said their club would probably be able to pick up that fee as well.
do you think it's a definitely, or
What's that?
do you think it's a definitely? Cause,
Definitely.
yeah, I'd like to, you know, make a motion tonight, one way or the other, like, to get this thing,
Well, my suggestion would be to have a conversation with Peter first and see who's really responsible for managing
yeah,
the landfill and the landfill testing, the landfill monitoring.
okay,
So I would suggest before you make a decision on this is to get some input from him on what, issues he may or may not have about it.
okay,
I agree. And I spoke with a couple of the guys at the transfer station, because one of the gentlemen interested in doing this visited the
mhm,
site Saturday, just to make sure. He doesn't want to have everybody pushing forward for something that's not really desirable. They do think it would be an excellent place. There are other municipalities who have done this, that have done this.
mhm,
And the guys at the transfer station thought they were like, oh, that'd be great.
yeah,
But there are a few, I can see, there's a few things that need to be put up front before, I think, in my opinion, before we vote
okay,
on whether or not to allow this. Michael also told me over the phone that he would like to video call with us, filling this out, so that we don't end up with a 3-month delay, because our eyes were not dotted.
yeah.
It's a
So, on those
already
follow-ups, even though, like, I'm liaison to the DPW and essentially Peter, but do you mind following up with Peter?
I don't mind
So
at
you,
all.
cause you've, like,
Yeah.
followed this thing all the
Yeah,
way
yeah.
through, alright,
I told, well, it was Dan Owen is the guy who came to me.
mhm,
And so I told him, watch the meeting if you can, or better yet, come to the meeting, just to
Yeah.
get input.
yeah,
But I said, at some point, it would be really nice if you could come in and give an overview of what this club, because a lot of the insurance questions that were answered from Scott's email, he felt like their club would go above and beyond what our liability insurance would
yeah,
require. So I
okay,
think it's a
Yeah.
good step in the right direction, as far as
Alright.
I'm concerned.
I
And I can
agree,
do that.
okay,
Talk with, Peter and talk with him. Maybe next week he could come. Dan could come,
yep,
Dan and Mark.
I'd like to see it get moving and get them guys out doing what they love to do,
Nice.
yep.
Can I ask a question about this?
Sure,
What recreational use are we talking about?
So it's in like an airplane club or
Uh-huh.
at the transfer station on the capped landfill.
Would other citizens or residents be allowed to use it?
I don't see why not. Like they'd probably have to get permission, just like these gentlemen have, to make use of the space. And it'd be, looked at on an individual basis.
Does this have any impact on the discussions the planning board is supposed to pursue about turning that, part of that into a commercial district?
I don't think, not at this point, John. I'm not, we don't wanna hold, you know, some recreation up over, you know, like something that may or may not happen.
Okay.
Yeah, and the area in question is the capped landfill area, which is probably never gonna be buildable,
Mhm.
as far as I.
Except for solar.
Oh.
All right, thank you.
So, Alan?
In all the discussion about the flying club or whatever you wanna call it, I've heard all the insurance issues and so on and so forth, but I haven't heard any discussion on the selectmen about policy. Because you're gonna be put in a bind when the next club comes along, and their argument is, well, you gave these guys the okay. So if I want a snowmobile or, all-terrain vehicle,
Mhm.
if I wanna go shoot rats, you know, you have to define where you're gonna draw the line. And one club comes forward and it sounds great, I support the idea, it's a waste of space, it's great for them.
Mhm.
But what do you do when the next club comes in and wants to use town land and they're a little less desirable, and then you just have to let them go.
Well,
And the next guy.
well,
comes
in your three examples, you know, firearms usage up at that space, most likely not permitted just because of, you know, people potentially being around. ATV use, it's more impact on the land, you know, like that's
We're
not,
also talking about the landfill to
Yeah.
dump, and if you've already allowed one group, I'm not,
Yeah, no, I'm just saying the
whatever
examples that
groups
you
come,
set
yeah,
forth,
you're just-
yeah.
you need
This
to-
is
I
a, this is
believe
a
you need to
low
set
to no
policy.
impact, yes, yep.
Say,
I do understand where you're coming from, and I think that it, cripples people sometimes. Because there's the what ifs, and
the what
Can't
ifs is
just
what you
kill you.
have to prepare for, not the RC club.
But
they're great.
as far as what you're bringing up, I believe it would be case by case. And if it turned out to be a nightmare, then it would have to be done. That, I'm sorry, RC Club, the mob has taken over, and we just cannot. But otherwise, case by case, and if it's the people on the land, if they can use it, I think, great.
Yep.
That's my outlook on it.
Yeah.
It may be naive, said the 3-month-old selectman.
No, I like this as low impact, you know, there's no.
I believe it
yeah.
is, but it does need further discussions.
Yep. Alright. We have the Comcast agreement.
Yeah, I have a clean copy back from Comcast for the selectmen to sign.
Now, I hate moving goalposts. I'm just asking. So, what made it switch from a 5-year to a 10-year agreement?
So the switch was, we asked for a high definition public access channel.
Mhm.
And that's kind of consistent where we want to move with some of the other technology that we have proposals for.
Yeah.
And in order for that to be cost effectively amortized, they need a longer window to amortize that. So and most of the agreements are typically 10-year agreements.
Mhm.
So that's the primary driver, is amortizing the cost of them providing those extra services to the town. They have a 10-year window to amortize those costs over, so the impact that it's gonna have on the subscriber is gonna be smaller, but for a longer term.
Okay. Alright. So do you have one for us to review?
I did, I had a similar question.
Yeah.
In that, the 10-year, if it's just for high def, I know the video,
Thank you.
the usage or viewership right now is almost nothing. Nobody is watching. However, like you pointed out, Scott, that may change if you made it more dynamic. It
Well-
could, but
Well, it could. There-
that aside though, 10 years it seems, I don't know if I would ever sign a contract with us for services for 10 years.
Mhm.
It seems like a long time, and we're gonna lock into this, and in 7 years, everyone else is having a great time, and we're like.
Who's the everyone else?
The
Just
other, you know, the other municipal, like the terms have changed.
yeah.
The available terms, I should say, is 10 years.
But even with 5 years, you know, like, even if we worked out this agreement with them,
Yeah.
like next year, like they don't do them all in the same
What's that?
time frame. Like you're always gonna have a better deal. It's kind of like,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah. So you can't,
Or it may not be.
yeah,
It could work the opposite way. We could be happy that we had a 10-year.
yeah,
But my only point is 10 years is a long time.
yeah,
What was our previous agreement? It was 5.
5, yeah.
Yeah, but and the high def, that was my other question. Does that enable us to do more?
It does.
Or is it,
It does.
without the high def, you're limited to what capabilities we have?
Right, so it's gonna limit, so if you can't get the high def channel, some of the other equipment upgrades that we're looking at for, you know, Ron and crew to deal with, to improve our ability to broadcast a live stream rather than doing what we're doing now, which is uploading and not having this meeting available until 3 or 4 hours after the meeting. You know, all of that, requires high def, channel capabilities. Otherwise, it's kind of pointless to do anything else, right? We just stay static with what we have. You know, the other part of that was the, you know, the upgraded software that comes with the upgrade, because we're about 4 versions behind right now. And that's 4 full versions, not incremental versions. That gives us more capability as far as public bulletin board capabilities on both stations, actually, because we can still use the standard def channel. That's not gonna go away. And the reason for that is not everybody, though, you know, has moved to high def in their households or businesses necessarily.
Mhm.
So there is a percentage of the population, and they kind of caution at, you know, just doing away with the standard def because you're gonna lose part of your audience, at least initially. And over time, as technology moves forward, I mean, even the FCC is pushing everyone to a high def world. I mean, that's you know, all the broadcast stations have been kind of forced to go to high def. So that is clearly gonna, you know, take over and dominate if it hasn't already. So there are
That
some other.
agreement Over.
Yeah, so this is, now you guys had the draft of this agreement last week that you
Mhm.
voted on. I had him give us the final version on that for signature, so that's the one that you've already reviewed. It's just in a format that's ready to sign.
Because the user fee is in, or whatever, what is that called?
Franchise.
Franchise fee was increased to 3%.
Yep.
Wouldn't that make a difference in the upgrade, the amortization timescale?
So that fee isn't going to Comcast, so it is, right, the fee is coming to us, so it isn't helping them amortize their costs at all. You know, that's, yeah.
interested on in what the total numbers are that we've been collecting in franchise fees quarterly
So we collect about $7,000 quarterly
right now.
at 2%.
Yeah,
So in theory, if you extrapolate those numbers, that's gonna be about 10.5 quarterly.
yeah.
Now, Sean, you had asked, or maybe John, one of you asked me to look into committees. I saw it on our minutes there even.
Mm.
How the point was brought up of illegal committees or whatever. I spent whatever time I had searching RSAs, found nothing. I called NHMA. Am I saying that right? NHMA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spoke to someone there and he said, these are advisory committees. And they are set up at the selectmen's discretion. The legislative body always has authority over selectmen, which is the town.
Yeah.
So they can stipulate how they want things set up. But as an advisory committee, it's up to the select board. And it's prudent to have all committees set up the same way as a statutory committee. In other words, take your minutes and have public transparency,
Mm.
is what they said. So, but no RSAs outlining advisory committee formation,
Okay,
so.
thank you.
I was looking through the expense report.
Mhm.
Where do we find the video committee?
It's not in there.
It's not, it's part of the BOS.
Yeah, so right,
Expenses.
so right now, it goes, that money goes into two separate funds. So it goes into the video account,
Okay.
and the majority of it goes into the general fund.
Yeah,
So-
it's like a 70-30 right now, or?
I haven't confirmed that, so
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not gonna misstate.
Mhm. But I know that, so even with that potential 10,500 per quarter, which is, 42,000 a year, potentially, like, cause we upped the franchise fee from 2% to 3%.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking to make sure that all of that money goes into the video account.
Yeah, because, well, it seems like it was somewhat depleted.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it came time to do upgrades, there wasn't enough money to do
And
it,
then
so
with-
it's,
and then
that
with-
seems like it.
And then with that
would be
money,
a-
we'll be able to offer more broadcasting potentially, like
Potentially,
if
if we have a committee that's able to carry it out, and that's a question.
yeah,
Well, it's whether you want a committee or you wanna have a group of volunteers / part-time, employees, that you pay to do that, and still have it under the control of the selectmen. You don't necessarily need
An acting committee.
a committee to do it,
yeah,
Hmm.
so, I mean, that's something you have to decide.
yeah.
Yeah, for later discussion.
Yep. We have to make sure we get that warrant set to correct.
Yeah, and I don't know if you wanna write it down, look it up in your own time, but 2013 report, Article 14 was when it was initiated. And it is the selectmen who determined that. And then in 2018, it was amended to include general fund.
Are you taking notes right now?
I am,
Like for minutes or just notes in general?
I'm taking notes to help me do the minutes, or help Susan do the minutes, depending on how well these recordings come across.
Okay.
Yeah, so Article 15, put that percentage. Well, it just says to drop the contribution down to 1750. This was 2018.
But that didn't pass, I don't think.
It says it passed.
Oh, it did pass?
Oh, wait, no, it needed a 2/3 ballot.
Yeah. So that one didn't pass.
416 to 337, is that 2/3? Got your calculator?
No, that's not.
That's right, it didn't.
So what's the specifics though? To move it from what to what? Does it say
Well,
in the
no.
2018?
In 2018, it didn't pass, so it doesn't matter.
I know, but does it say what it was at?
Yeah, it says it was at 3,500.
Okay, so it was dollar amounts.
Yeah. And it was a requested drop that to 1750.
Okay.
Because the initial Article 14, set it at $3,500.
Right, so that, under the current scenario, about 24,000 of the, and change of the 28,000 we collect annually is going right to the general fund.
Hmm.
So, I don't know, we're gonna have to look at that article to see if we need to put another warrant to the town.
We do.
We don't have to look at it to know that.
No. Yeah, we have to correct it through warrant. Cause the town voted on that.
Yeah.
We just have to make sure we do it, like, explain it well enough. You know, and why we're moving it. And like a correction essentially.
Sean, may I ask a question?
Yes, John.
So you guys are talking between a 5 and a 10-year contract, possibly?
Yes.
Does the town have other contracts that go beyond 5 years? Seems awfully long to be bound to something.
From what I understand, this is a standard agreement with Comcast, like for the 10 years.
So for example, when the FCC, back in the 80s, I believe it was, maybe late 70s, kind of authorized, cable franchises to exist, in a lot of cases, the initial contract with towns was 20 years, because the cost of the infrastructure, much like any other utility, is huge, and they wanted the contractor to be able to recoup their investment. And so they treated it as a long-term investment, and therefore initial contracts were 20 years. Renewals are typically 10 years. I was kind of caught off guard, quite frankly, that ours was only a 5-year contract. I knew it had started in 2016, and when I took a close look at it, as Craig Smith and Lou Alvarez and I started looking into some of the broadband issues, that's when I realized that it was only a 5-year agreement and was set to expire on July 18th. And again, a lot of it has to do with, depending on what services you're requesting from the cable operator, is going to impact their costs, and therefore, we can certainly do a 5-year agreement, but that just means the subscriber base is going to have to eat more of that cost over the 5-year window. The cost doesn't change, it's just going to be compressed into a shorter amortization schedule, and therefore all the Comcast subscribers are gonna take a bigger hit on their monthly cable bill than if we spread that cost over 10 years.
Was there any discussion how big of a hit this is gonna have on a typical cable bill?
There was, and unfortunately my memory isn't good enough to remember the specifics. We talked with Brian Christensen, but it is basically gonna be fairly minimal between the 3%, the increase from 2% to 3% in the franchise fee and the cost of the high def channel. He didn't expect that people were gonna see a huge impact in their bill, so.
Now, how wealthy is this person who said it wasn't gonna be huge?
I don't know what his personal
No, I
situation
know.
is.
I would like to read this for you, just to see why I brought up whether or not it has to go. It says, to see if the town will vote to establish a revolving fund pursuant to RSA 31:95-HE for the purpose of providing cable access for public, educational, or governmental use, effective April 1st, 2013, with $3,500 of funding to come annually from the current cable franchise fee. The funds will be allowed to accumulate from year to year and shall not be considered part of the town's general fund unreserved fund balance. The town treasurer shall have custody of all monies in the fund and shall pay out the same only upon the order of the Board of Selectmen, and no further approval is required by the legislative body to expend. Such funds may be expended only for providing, improving, or updating cable and video distribution as determined by the Board of Selectmen. This article seems, and maybe there's one that did away with it, but it ends, you read that last line. Perhaps
I
it's
think
only
that-
talking about the $3,500. What
Yeah.
was the franchise fee at that time? What was the income from it? And so. I think it does bear.
Yeah, because I was kinda surprised that it wasn't a percentage, cause it's always been spoken to me about a percentage split.
And it said
From
it's always
David
been
to
money
John.
split. It's always
Yeah,
been
so that's-
dollars.
Yeah, this is whole dollars. So I don't know if that just wasn't put into the article, like what the percentages would be and where the rest of it was gonna go.
It doesn't say anything about general fund in
Mhm.
there, where that came in.
Yeah. Alright, well, maybe it'll be easier than I thought, like to,
I don't
yeah,
know. We do have somebody
oh,
here,
sorry,
if you choose.
I'm just listening to the discussion,
yeah,
and thinking back to 2013, I do remember the article. I wasn't on board then or not, I don't know, but it's pretty clear that the $3,500 in franchise fees goes into that pot,
yeah,
okay? And wherever it was going before, which was the general fund, looks like the first 3,500 and bingo, off it goes. And then the rest will go to the general fund, it has to go somewhere.
yeah.
That would be how you'd interpret that.
That's how, yeah, I think it's pretty, instead of being a percentage, it's a fixed, it's a capped amount.
Mhm.
That's my, and that's, again, it's a long-term recollection of
Yeah.
how that worked. So it'd be $3,500 a year going into this pot.
Okay.
And then you had something in 2018 which I don't recall.
Yeah, that
That
didn't end
didn't
up
pass.
passing, no,
So if it didn't pass, it's voided, it never happened.
correct. And in that one, I was kinda hoping like at some point I'd hear percentages, so like the percentages just must have been, ascertained from the, like the amounts.
I was on the board when the first cable agreement was done.
Okay,
It was done with First Carolina. Was the name of the company. And, you know, one fish swallowed the other, and now you got Comcast.
Yeah.
But at the time we did it, it was not an exclusive agreement.
Hmm.
We had an agreement with at least one other.
Well, and this
But they
one's
never
not
both-
exclusive either.
Correct.
Yeah, this is not exclusive. So, yeah.
But, you know, you're dealing with a company the size of Comcast. Nobody else is gonna come in here to town this size and try and string cable up all over the place.
No.
I mean, it wouldn't cost too much.
Yeah.
Do you remember the very first, and was there always a franchise fee?
Yes, there was a franchise fee, and I can tell you it was a franchise fee, and it was a public access channel. Those were things that we absolutely wanted. We could have the franchise fee, but the public access channel. Having worked with other towns, I know that there are places where Comcast doesn't offer a public access channel, and nobody had the brains to ask for one in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have something to add, Ron?
No, I was wondering if you guys would wonder why we had $3,500, why with the 3,500? Were you wondering that reason?
Well, no, we're gonna look to move you to get the whole amount.
Yes, I like
Yeah,
that, but I thought you were wondering how come it went to 3,500.
I just thought it was always spoken about in percentages, cause whenever I had heard about it previously, yeah, so,
Well,
And-
let me tell you why it went to 3,500.
okay,
2,500 was for Easy Stream. They used to upload our video for us. That was $2,500 a year.
yeah,
That left us with $1,000. That's so if we needed to buy equipment, we got some money, right?
yeah,
So therefore, down the road, I had a friend of mine said, why don't you use YouTube, it doesn't cost you anything. So that's what I did, and so we were saving that $2,500.
yeah,
And then the previous board wanted to drop us back to 17.5, but that did not pass.
no.
That's what it was.
Well, and what all those lower amounts, even the 3,500 have created was, little use of the station that's available to us for programming.
Right.
So, you know, there's many more things that we could do with those channels. Yes, Alan?
One of the things the revolving fund did with 3,500, whether you agree with the amount or not, is allowed it to carry it over year to year to year
Mm-hmm.
without having to put
That's
in
right.
anything else. You have.
That's,
My original question was clarification on the high def situation. Can we get high def on a 5-year contract?
no.
We could.
Huh?
Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, no, we,
Anybody want to make a tie vote?
We cannot get high def on our 5-year contract.
no, I believe he said that we could, that just
We
the,
could have, but we did.
but the
we never got
cost,
it.
the cost to the subscriber on a monthly basis would go up because you're amortizing the cost
Well, high
over.
def is available on a 5-year contract, because originally the question was, why are we going 10 years? And the primary reason was, we have to get high def, which
Mhm.
makes sense. Now, here in a high def may be available on 5-year, which would be a higher amortization of the cost, agreed, but that's still an option that you have.
Yeah,
I originally heard that we have to get 10-year because we need high def.
yeah. Okay,
Can I make a comment?
sure.
So, you know, I'm watching this meeting on my phone through one bar Wi-Fi, and I can see it pretty crystal clear. What does the town do that requires high def?
It doesn't require the high def, but we're looking to upgrade our equipment currently, and we would need use of that high def channel. Like it's another tool in the toolbox, so to speak. So we're looking to do different things with our public access channels that we're gonna have.
That you can't do with standard definition?
That's correct.
Like what, if I can ask?
So for example, if we want to do these streaming, live, meetings rather than doing the upload to YouTube like we're doing now, then the equipment that allows us to do that requires us to also move to high def.
with all the issues that we've had during the COVID situation, it became clear that our current video and audio capability is insufficient. There's also the ability to add, to upgrade our software. So it allows us some additional tools that we don't have now with the newer version of the software, and that new software also requires us to take full advantage of its functionality to move to a high def scenario.
Okay.
Now, Scott, I guess, could we get clarification on what the cost amounts to the subscriber are, like the 5-year versus the 10-year?
While implementing the high def.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it would be good to know.
Yeah.
We don't want people grabbing their pitchforks and storming
So my frustration, gentlemen, is that we had these discussions earlier on this contract, and we should have asked those questions before I had him finalize the contract. So now, a contract that Comcast believes we already agreed to, you're asking me to go back and potentially renegotiate the contract, and it just puts us in an awkward position, to say the least.
Just looking for clarification
Yeah.
on the amounts.
It's not I don't believe you asked to rewrite the contract.
Well,
Just to,
if we're talking about cutting the term in half,
but we don't know, we wanted, I think the question was what is the
right,
difference?
and I, though I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, you know, there is an incremental cost to the subscribers of compressing this into a 5-year if you still want the high def station, that's all. And if you want exact numbers, or at least numbers that we can guess based on the current revenue generated via the subscriber base, you know, which is always subject to change as people, you know, either join Comcast or leave Comcast. So, but I'll try to get some dollar numbers for you.
Which I know that we had already, you know, approved the contract, you know, like all three of us did when we were all three of us were here. That's why I believe in what we're doing, and I happily signed it. But there was some last minute questions of it.
Yeah, and I felt and I think I stated last week, I mean, yeah, we had an emailed copy of a 62-page document.
Mhm.
I asked for clarification, any highlights, and was told it's a blanket carbon copy. I'm not comfortable, I'm a lot more comfortable, I am a lot more comfortable signing it now
Mhm.
that I have some questions answered,
Yeah.
but I would like the question
Yeah, the
you asked
clarification. Okay.
to be, just to make sure, because we did file for an extension
No.
of renewing this.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have an extension.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like has been pointed out by several people, 10 years is a long time.
Yeah.
We should know what we're signing.
Yeah.
And I apologize to you, Scott, for any kind of extra work that it does, but
Yeah.
I don't know what else to do.
Okay. Did you have anything for us on the right to know requests? Like the printouts
Well, you
of
asked me
them,
to go through that list, so what I have here is the list you asked me to go down,
Yep.
that you sent me. These are all the emails that I received starting back in, I guess, I want to say February 1st, from Mr. Doyle. And I believe there's 26 of them here that I've received so far. And this stack here is our response to that right to know request. So each email and each set of documents that were sent back
Mhm.
based on each one of those requests.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have to go through them. We're already, you know.
Yeah,
already there. Yeah, we don't have to go through the whole stack, but I'd like to have that to review, if you don't mind.
Sure, you and I could sit down and go through it if you'd like.
Okay. Alright, and the request for bid?
So unfortunately, based on everything else that I've had to do, I do not have that complete last night. I was working on it till about 9 last night, trying to finalize that document. But I had to come in this morning because Susan's out, and I had already sent you the minutes for the 4 non-public sessions to review.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent you earlier today the minutes for the public session to review.
Okay.
So that took up that, and just other
Yeah.
issues took up my morning.
Okay.
Correlating all this took up my afternoon, and so unfortunately, I'm gonna have to keep plugging away at that document, and hopefully we'll have it to you electronically within the next day or two, is my plan.
Okay, thank you.
And so we can make a move on it next week.
Alright, so for old and new business,
Old and new business. Okay, so, budget reports, I sent you, I already sent you this electronically, but here's a hard copy. And that shows our year-to-date expenditures through June 28th, basically halfway through the year. Each of the departments, boards, committees, commissions, all got their individual reports as well, so they can see where their spending is year-to-date. There are a few line items where we've overspent, but mostly minor things. And you can look through that at your leisure to see if there's anything that you'd like any of the boards or committees to come in, or departments to come in and address and discuss with you.
okay. Yeah, I would like to have a budget meeting. I don't know if it's between just us or with the budget advisory committee or the finance advisory committee. Outlining what we expect, like in this budget season.
I think that's a great idea.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
As chairman of the Board of Assessors, I got a copy of our budget year-to-date.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a question on it. My question is, how much has been spent on Article 10, which is assessing contract for the cyclical revaluation? And the reason I ask is because proportionally, I've spent more than I anticipated on the evaluate, and it would say, the pickups, the day-to-day stuff. There's two categories of contract services,
Yeah.
okay? And it looks like I'm way over on my regular budget.
Mm-hmm.
But where am I on Article 10? Article 10 is the cyclical revaluation. I didn't see anything on that. I was wondering if maybe nothing got charged there and everything got charged over to the other.
Yeah, we'll have to look into it. The articles aren't in this report,
Okay.
so.
And the other
Alright.
comment I have is, if a budget advisory committee replaced a budget committee, okay?
Yeah.
A budget committee typically has nothing to do with how you spend it. If you wanna talk about how you're spending it, I don't think you need a budget committee.
Well, not how we're spending it, but what we're gonna, how we want this next budget cycle to go with the departments.
If you're talking about budgeting, that's
Budgeting,
different,
yeah,
okay?
yeah.
But if you're talking about where are we now and what do we have to tweak,
Mhm.
then I think you need department heads and board chairman.
Correct, yep, I agree. Yeah, no, it's just more over the 2 years before I became selectman and watching some of the budget process, and then in the 1 year that I was a selectman and being a part of that budget process, I've been looking to make improvements each year. And one of the things that I've seen over the last 3 or 4 years is that a department head will come in for their budget, and then we'll send them away, and they have to come back to us. So I'm looking like for them to have all the information of what we expect of them, upfront, and, you know, cause I don't want any missing information, and the way that we want them to build their budget, like as if starting from zero, and not just the copy paste mentality for things. Cause something else that I've seen too is that because you need an account for something, like for that line item, the thought was always that if you don't have anything for that, like it's like a placeholder, so a lot of things are miscategorized. So I'd like a correction of all that, cause those accounts don't necessarily go away, you just start a new account number, like for whatever the renamed line item's gonna be.
I understand your accounting system, I
Yeah.
worked with it for close to 30 years,
Yeah,
okay, the
Yeah.
same software as it evolved. So I understand how it works, but I would think you'd have a unique account number for Article 10 for this year. Maybe go-
no, I do, we have it, we do have that here, but like Scott said,
Anything expended?
there's no numbers, like this hasn't been populated yet. It's all zeros,
Okay, it's all zero.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so I will go back and take a look at the vendor and see. Because they've been doing the cyclical, so something should be in there.
mhm,
So what I suspect is that one's too high, the other's is zero.
yeah,
You know, it makes a difference.
no, yeah, absolutely does,
So what it is, the assessor's budget looks like it's, for the amount of time, for the first 6 months, looks like it's overexpended a little bit if you make things linear. We know that things aren't perfectly linear, but
okay,
it looks like it's overexpended. I don't think it is.
trying to,
Where do you see the overexpended?
Well, if I look at the assessor's budget, I don't mean the budget's overexpended, but if we're in the middle of the year, we should be somewhere around halfway.
Which it looks like, 43.9% left.
You ever go to the account for
no, yeah,
contract services?
Right, it says it's
Oh.
18.46% left.
I see, yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's
I can
okay.
tell you right now, Jim, that the assessed value update, which was Article 10. Wait, and then there's a health services, Article 10. We're gonna have to look at this, a little bit closer, just get clarification on it. Cause there's,
I'm not saying anybody did anything
Yeah.
wrong, I just saying that when I look at it, I have no idea what, because Article 10 is part of our budget,
yeah,
in the bigger scheme of things.
What you're seeing there, Sean, is, from the year previous.
no, this is this year's,
Well, I don't know
Report.
if it's Article 10.
potentially, well, one has 9,300 spent out of it, and then the other one, and it's called health services,
But that was from the 2020 warrant.
okay.
Yeah.
And then the assessed value update, is that what like last year's would be?
I believe so.
So they were both.
Has
from-
nothing expended out of it yet,
Article 10 had 20,400, I think,
okay,
put
Yeah.
into the account.
mhm,
And also 20,400 taken out of the account. Not the same dollars, you can't do it one year, but
yeah,
it's basically put in and take out, put in and take out.
yep. Alright. We'll have to look at that a little bit
We had a
closer,
big discussion on it.
Yep. thank you.
And a more appropriate time of year, I'm gonna start to do it, go ahead
Okay,
and,
Did you wanna ask just before you wrap up?
A general question before you all leave.
okay. The next item on the old new business,
That's 670 Turnpike Road.
yep,
You know, at this point, there's been a lot of correspondence, back and forth, between, various folks. And at this point, you know, we're at, really the state's mercy, so, there's some concerns about, the erosion, et cetera, and sediment coming off the property. The property owner has installed some siltation barriers. As far as the driveway access is concerned, I don't know that he's asking for a permanent driveway access off of that area that's being worked on right now. It looks like he's using a neighbor's driveway to get access to the property, but I don't know that his intention is to make any type of permanent driveway there. We have no application in front of us, and honestly, it has nothing to do with us. It's a state highway, it goes to New Hampshire DOT, and so it's between the property owner and DOT. If DOT gets an application and approves it, they will send us a copy, and we put it in the property file. It's not something, I talked to Peter about it, it's not something that our road agent would necessarily get involved with unless DOT asked for his input. And they already applied for an intent to cut. I'm expecting, based on some of the correspondence with Department of Environmental Services, that we're likely to see an alteration of terrain application being filed if it hasn't been already. And that's kind of where things stand.
Okay. Jim?
Okay. We have got the intent to cut. He will get a report form, he'll fill out the report form, send it to us, and we'll apply the appropriate tax. We pretty much have a fair idea of how much was taken off the property.
Okay.
So I'll take it off as cordwood. Which makes sense if you look at an aerial, because it didn't look like there were any pine trees there, and most around here cordwood's usually hard.
Yeah.
The only comment I have on the driveway is, and this is just thinking out loud, the driveway he accessed goes to another property with a building in the back. That driveway got a permit from the state. It didn't just happen, okay? Coming out onto that driveway, and this is the thought I would have, could doing that cause a problem with the state from the other guy? I mean, you know.
I can maybe answer, and I didn't see the paperwork, but I did talk to the owner, and he said it's a deeded shared driveway.
Okay.
So a lot of the suppositions and who knows and whatever, I guess you have to do that, but
Well, the state.
he's aware of the keen interest in what's going on there, and I believe he's not shaking his fist at anyone. He seemed to me to be working.
I'm not saying somebody should.
No, but a lot of the,
It's a deeded shared driveway then.
that's what he told me, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then one has to be careful of what the state actually permitted. Depending on what you put there.
But again, like you said, Jim, that's between the state and them and not between us. I mean, we have nothing to do with it at this point, from what I understand.
That shared driveway would have gone in, been part of the subdivision approval years ago when that was subdivided. Those were all
Yeah.
in one subdivision.
Okay.
I remember the subdivision, that's why. I would just wanna make sure that somebody doesn't get blindsided.
Yeah.
But as far as the Board of Assessors is concerned, our piece should be wrapped up and we're done with it.
Okay.
We
Thank
have
you.
no interest in whether or not they have a permit to do anything that they're doing there. It's not our domain,
Okay.
but the intent was.
Did you have anything
Sean?
else? Oh.
Yep.
Sorry, Mr. Sean Waffle?
Can the town provide me with the property owners' names and addresses? I'm just gonna report the driveway to the state and let the state sort it out. If the selectmen aren't gonna do that and let the state sort out whether it's a legal access point or a legal driveway or not, then I will do that for myself. And let the state figure it out. Because you are right, our driveway regulations state and the RSA state that, the state of New Hampshire would regulate that driveway or access point. But, you know, it's kind of incumbent upon the user to show that they have that approval.
Okay,
Why should we have to go chasing it down? But I'll just report it to the state and let the state sort it out. Then we'll know for sure.
like as a resident or as chair of the planning board?
Yeah, I'll figure that out.
Okay,
I mean, you realize that if I think there's a violation, I have a fiduciary duty as the chair of the planning board to report it to the appropriate authority.
mhm,
And then the state can sort it out.
okay.
State road, state can figure it out.
Can you get that information to John?
Sure.
Thank you, Scott. Did you have anything else under old new?
I do. So, you may remember a while back, we decided to engage Southwest Regional Planning Commission on road surface management
Yes,
system. And at the time, Henry Underwood at Southwest indicated that they were unsure of how much state and federal funding they were gonna get, because obviously this is an interesting year, to say the least, because of COVID. So, what he has come back with is, he wants to do some cost sharing with the town, on this. And the overall cost of doing this for us is about $14,000. And he's asking the town to do a match of 20%, so it'll be an 80-20 scenario. So it would cost the town $2,800 for them to start this project.
mhm,
And you don't have to make a decision tonight, but I would like to, hopefully by next week, have you consider it. And you know, I think this is something that we already discussed as being beneficial to the town. And I believe that,
When was this
John,
discussed?
does the planning board still
Before the
support
last- before you were elected.
engagement with
I thought so. I've never
Southwest
seen this.
regarding the road surface management system?
Well, we haven't discussed it, but the last time, yeah, in part because, we would like, well, I mean, most of this emphasis from this came from when I was on the road committee. Because the road committee, some members felt that it would be good to have some external, perhaps more objective data that's less biased, that could be used in making decisions on which roads to pave next.
Mhm.
However, at the same time, it would be useful for the planning board to have this information, because as we go ahead and look at various subdivision applications, we can see what condition the road is. Because if the road is in poor condition, we might choose to levy, essentially a user fee on the developer to bring the road up to specifications for any increased traffic.
Okay,
So to give you an example, if someone were to re-propose a Stowell Road development there, which even with the portion of Stowell Road that's going to get, fixed some this year, that road is generally inadequate for much more traffic going all the way out to the end of it.
mhm,
And such cost might be levied on the developer, or a part of it on the developer.
I believe there was another option that was presented to us for this type of review. But we thought that this would be possibly 100% covered by Southwest Regional.
Right, so
Planning.
typically, historically, they have used state and federal funding to cover the cost of the communities.
Yeah.
It's just that, under the scenario that we've lived through the last year, funding is a little bit tighter, and that's why they're asking for a 20% match. Honestly, it doesn't seem like a lot of money for what we're gonna get out of it. And Jason, if you wanna see an example, I was gonna print out one that they had done for another community. It was 88 pages long, so I felt, I did, you know, I think it's something that,
You heard me say a 62-page contract?
right, exactly.
No,
But
but I'd like to see it at some point.
yeah,
just
so
to
so they
see
did
what
it for the
you
town of Hancock, and I'll try to see if, I think I have a copy floating around in the office somewhere. I'll try to pull it out for you and let you take a look at what the end product is that they're proposing for us. You know, my thought on this as far as a funding source would be to take this out of the highway block grant, but we'd wanna work with Peter on that because he uses those funds for other things as well. So that's probably a discussion that we would wanna include him in.
And at what point were they asking for this fund? Did they have a date set, or?
I don't know that he's asking for a specific date as of yet. Normally, they would have started some of these engagements already this season, but because of this funding question, they basically told me earlier, that, it would have to be in the last half of the year, because they wanted to understand what the funding mechanisms were gonna be. Hence, this is why we have this email today.
So I'll talk to Peter.
Yep.
About this.
And see what makes sense, and
Yep.
we can, mull it again at another time.
Thank you, Scott.
Last thing I have is the cleaning service. Got
Okay.
some bad news on the cleaning service.
Oh, no.
So, they said they're having trouble finding appropriate staffing, to be able to, accommodate us. You know, we had asked cleaning to be done during the day on Tuesdays. That's what was most convenient for the police department, based on, you know, their current staffing, environment. So days are gonna be difficult for them. The other thing that he brought up is, that, his service area, you know, we're kind of at the fringe of his service area, and he's having trouble finding human resources that are available to do it. I'm a little frustrated because I wish when Mark started having discussions with him that these issues were revealed then.
Yeah, 'cause I feel like we're 95% of the way there.
Well,
with
we have a
them.
signed
Yeah.
contract in place, and, you know, we were basically waiting for a firm start date.
Yeah.
We had given him all the detail and all of our parameters, and now he's coming back saying that they might not be able to accommodate us at all. So it is extremely frustrating that we've, you know, burned a couple of months going back and forth with them, and we may not have the solution we thought.
During the course of it, Mark did say that there are several people in town who, when they heard of it, said they'd be interested in doing it. They would have to go through the background checks.
Yeah, let's,
And it might be an avenue we want to pursue.
Yeah.
I don't know what we do with a signed contract if they're not able to fill it.
well, I
What do
think
we
we're
do
gonna
with
need a letter back from them, stating why they can't fulfill the contract, and then they're gonna have to ask us to release them from the obligation. That's my thought.
Yeah, and if somebody in town is willing to do this, it seems like that it would give the police department more flexibility as well.
Yeah.
You know, if they know the person's in town and they're like, hey, Tuesday isn't gonna work this week, can you do Wednesday?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There might be some benefits to it. I don't know.
So could you reach out to Mark and see if you could follow up with those people that were interested locally?
Yeah, I don't know if Mark's aware of who they are or just that people existed, but I'll check with him.
Thank you.
Outside of that, I think call to surrounding departments.
The police departments to find out who they use.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
If one of them companies would have a slot seems like that would be a fast.
I'll see what Mark has for input.
Sean, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can you rent somebody from the SAU? They have people that do this all the time professionally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the issue with the police station is just, certain level of background check has to be complete, John, before they can have access to that facility. Includes fingerprinting, et cetera, et cetera.
But you can background check them, and they've probably already been partially background checked to be around children.
This is true.
No, good thought.
So,
Alright, I know we definitely have avenues to go. I'm kinda surprised that it's taken
Oh, it's
this
very
much
frustrating,
effort.
I share your
Seems like it should
frustration,
be a
Scott.
lot simpler.
Just hire someone, I mean, we got that roof is already installed,
Yeah,
and we haven't been able to get a cleaning company in the police department.
it's insane.
Well, hey,
Did you have anything else under old new business, Jay, for tonight? You want to say no, it's no. But, a little list.
I don't really have a big list.
Okay.
No, a lot of it was covered. I do have the, sale of the property. We were instructed by the voters to sell some property, and I'm wondering if there's been, any.
Well, I wouldn't take it as instructed to, but we asked for permission, we're granted permission to.
Oh, I take it as instructed. It's in the
Because-
warrant.
Cause we were asking
Yeah,
if we could
yeah.
sell it,
No,
and,
But- but we have every motivation to.
Yep.
And I think it's in the best interest of the town
I agree.
to do, so I'm just wondering if there's any progress on the auction house or
No,
any dates set.
there is no date set because honestly, I have to get all the property files together, I have to get maps together for each of the properties we're considering selling. I've got to research the deeds, and get them out of the registry of deeds, and get that all prepared to send over to the auctioneer, so it's gonna take a concerted amount of, effort and time to do that.
Do you have an expectation of when?
2 months ago,
Yeah.
that was my expectation, right?
Yeah.
So, it's on the list and, just trying to get there.
Okay.
I did have, also, we have the emails that came through on the Fourth of July fireworks ordinances,
Mm-hmm.
and it seemed like there's some frustration, both from the departments and the people who wanted to shoot fireworks on Fourth of July and didn't know they needed to go 14 days in advance of filing with the chief and.
Well, that's where, it's been handled inconsistently, over the years. That's been, my first experience with it was last year, like I had stated, like in those messages, that last year, it was a soft deadline of 14 days, and there was some back and forth about that. John didn't feel like he should sign it, even though Meredith wanted to approve it.
Yeah, so them
So
kind of
there's
things.
kinda, yeah, that's
They're
why I'm just
similar to-
asking for consistency, like,
Yeah.
pick a path and be consistent with it. So if she's open to, you know, making adjustments to the ordinance, then,
Well, I wouldn't know what kind of adjustments could even be made, I mean, there may be reasons for the 14 days, but I
Well, it's just the
certainly
past-
would like to have the discussion, since she said that, she's open to discussing
mhm,
wording of the ordinances, if we could get it on an agenda.
okay,
Apparently this year, it's kinda too late,
yeah.
you know, that's
So
the
which,
best that I would have if.
when would you like it on? Next week, the following week?
Yeah. I suppose a lot of it would depend on Meredith, her availability.
Mhm.
I don't know if she responds.
Okay.
That was all that I had.
Okay. I didn't have anything under old new business myself. thank you all for coming. I appreciate all the input, in our meetings over the last, few weeks, and, it seemed like we're starting to gain some more faces and some more voices, so I appreciate that. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Can I ask a question?
We don't need the non-public at the end of the meeting. I don't know.
I wasn't sure
Sorry,
whether we
yeah, I
needed one, I put it on the agenda kind of as a placeholder, just in
Oh.
case. So if you don't have any
No, I
reason
don't.
to,
I didn't have anything.
okay,
I have
then adjourning sounds great.
Yeah,
A couple of weeks ago, we talked about training for right to know.
yes.
Has any of that taken place, or the selectmen attended that training?
Yes, actually Jason did, attend was it like a Zoom training?
Yeah, it was
And I
through
got
the
all the
NHMA.
Yeah, and I got all the material, sent to me over email. So we're working to understand it all and.
There's a whole section
yeah.
of it you can forget, like school stuff, I mean, you know,
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, it's nice to know.
Yeah,
But there's a piece in there, and I guess the question is, it follows that is, what plan do you have for minutes you can't reconstruct?
What plan would there possibly be?
well, we can't.
So-
Well, the only ones I can think of, we know that some of the videos aren't complete.
Mhm.
You have access to those ones that Ron didn't video because he was out. Are those available on Zoom? They're not available online, of course, because
Mhm.
nobody did it or they weren't got up. I'm not sure how many there are. I suspect 3 or 4.
Mhm. Now, all of ours are being recorded, correct, the Zoom calls,
Not all of them.
not all of them?
I would say a majority of them have been recorded. The way I have it set up is to have them automatically record,
Mhm.
but somewhere along the way on some of the ones, I set them up, but I'm not always the one who's the host.
Yeah,
So for whatever reason, somebody might have a different set of parameters and that box gets unchecked
okay,
and it doesn't get recorded. Tonight's was recorded because it announces at the beginning of the meeting that it's recording.
so if those like in those cases, we'll have to make a note that minutes weren't taken, no recordings available. I
I
don't,
mean, there's some things you can fix and some things you can't,
Yeah.
just move on, I understand that. But there should at least be a note in there that says we just don't leave it.
That's what I think
Board,
you just said.
okay?
yeah,
And
That
the
shocks.
other thing too is, and you may have touched on it earlier, but it's very clear in the right to know law that if you folks appoint a committee, the committee has to follow the right to know law.
mhm,
And there are some committees, even active ones, when I go to look at their minutes, I can't find them. One
Correct.
of which is the Stearns-Burton Committee. Sure, they don't meet very often, but my guess is they probably meet by telephone or email.
mhm.
That's
Okay,
And the reason I
interesting you
mention-
say that, Jim, because I talked to the NHMA attorney, and he said that these advisory committees are not held to the same, to any RSAs, is what he said.
Well, I'm not sure, sometimes it's how you ask the question and what the advisory.
I guess so.
But if you look in RSA 91A,
Mhm.
and I didn't bring it with me, but I'll give you a copy and highlight it.
we have it right here.
Okay, it pretty well says that if you appoint a committee, and especially a committee that's created by town meeting, okay,
Mhm.
it has to fall within 91A, it can't operate in the dark. Now, that's a little different than getting a couple of people together to come in and meet with you and give you some advice. I mean, I think that's totally different.
Yeah,
But, and the reason I mention it with the Stearns-Burton Committee is because one of the trustees of trust funds, and we have an issue with the request,
okay,
which will probably, Bentley's the chairman, he'll probably come up with an appointment. We wanna meet with the Stearns-Burton Committee, but in the end, I think we need to meet with the selectmen also.
But it's, yeah, I can see what you're saying, Jim. And I think from all the education I've got in the last 2 weeks on this right to know, everything points towards open, transparent, and if there's questions,
That's all.
generally the courts are gonna side with the people who are, they're gonna come hard against the municipality, and I think it's good.
I'm not trying to go to the court, okay?
No, I'm saying, this is the spirit of the thing, is what I'm saying, is that there's no need to be,
Wheeling and dealing in the back.
yeah, yeah.
With the lights out.
And that this is just part of the deal. It really was a big eye-opener for me. I've never served on a board that has had to do this. And I find it interesting
It
parameters that I find myself having to operate under.
It slows down efficiency.
It slows it down
Yes, no
tremendously.
question about it,
But I can see the need.
but it's intentional.
Yep.
Um,
And so I see.
But, I mean, one of the things that the trustees of trust funds are looking at is, most of them will take care of it pretty obvious, but we got a few funds in there that are, you know, we don't think are being used quite right.
Okay.
Okay, so we gotta fix that, and we know from experience that the, charitable trust division of the AG's office is very strict on it. If Joe says, I'm giving you money to do this, you can't 10 years later say, well, we did a lot of that, we're tired of it, let's take his money and do something, no, you just can't do it.
Yeah.
There is a way to redirect money at times, but the parameters are very tight,
Yeah.
and you've gotta go through a procedure.
Okay.
And so, and one of, and obviously, I still.
So I guess we'll look for an update
Huh?
from you on that, like when you guys get a chance to.
Yeah, well, next time we meet, I'm just alerting you that we discussed it, and all three of us, and we did go out and check with people that have been more expertise than us. Yeah.
Okay. Alright, thank you. There's a motion on the floor to adjourn.
Did you say there is?
There is, I made the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I second that motion.
All in favor?